everybody. Welcome to ABA Inside Track, the podcast that's like reading in your car, but safer. I'm your host, Robert Perry Cruz, and with me as always are my fabulous co-hosts.
Hey, Rob, it's Diana.
And it's Jackie.
Hey, this is episode 45 preview. Wow, we're getting close to 50, huh?
Doing it.
So in between our full-length episode weeks, we do these little preview episodes to tell you what it is we're going to be discussing in the full-length episode. And our next week's topic is a real interesting one. We were in conversation with Devon Sundberg, who is the coordinator of the Women in Behavior Analysis Conference. It's coming up in March. And we were sort of talking about the subject, and she suggested you could talk more about women in behavior analysis, kind of historically, and looking at some data around it. And she had some articles, and we said that sounds really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll be doing.
So fun.
Easy, right?
Easy peasy.
So if you would like to have pre-read the articles, some people like to pre-read, some people like to post-read, but let's tell you what they are. We have 3 articles, and again, a little bit different than our normal research articles, which is always a lot of fun. The first is Inconspicuous Sources of Behavioral Control, the Case of Gendered Practices by Ruiz from the Behavior Analyst Today, 2003. There's also My Mentors and Their Influences on My Career, which is an interview with Linda LeBlanc from the Behavior Analyst, 2015. And finally, Trends in Women's Participation at the Meetings of the Association for Behavior Analysis, 1975 to 2005, by Simon Morris Smith from the Behavior Analyst, 2007.
So much data.
So yeah, that has a lot of data on there. So the topic of women in behavior analysis, which is important to all 3 of us, even though only 67% of ABA Inside Track is female, in case you're not watching the video.
It's nice that you rounded up.
Yeah. So that'll be our topic for next week, and we'll have a special guest, Devon Sundberg.
I'm excited.
We didn't notice we all have hats on.
You kind of buried the lead. I buried the lead there with the whole, hey, this is what we're going to talk about in our podcast about behavior analysis and research. And I'm sorry, Jackie, I apologize.
That's okay. It's very cold out. It's winter.
Mm-hmm. You kind of look like
Blossom?
Yeah.
Yeah. Diana
That's a
kind
good
of.
look.
Thanks. Diana looks like a detective. Or a page boy.
I was going to say, don't I look like a newsie?
Yeah, newsy. And then Rob looks like a guy that works on the lift of a
A
ski
mountain
resort.
man.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just sit on the lift all day.
Yeah, you're like, what, dude? Let me scan your tick.
Do people say that?
Yeah, I play ski. Is that what I was just
I
gonna
play
say?
ski.
You
I
play
play
ski?
ski. Yeah, so it's winter. It's cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's frosty. Cool. Do we have anything to talk about from our website?
Well, yeah, let's move into the errata section.
Cool.
And the errata is where people, if they send in emails with feedback or comments or things we got wrong, we like to share some of those. And so we do have a few of those today. Our first, we have 2 that were all about our feeding episode that we did just last episode on feeding.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was a post that was on the website, abainsidetrack.com, and I put it on our Facebook page in the comments for the episode page. And I did not put who it was. It was Sean. I put listener Sean. Let me lift this up so I can actually read and talk at the same time. Listener Sean had some research links on feeding from the Monroe Meyer Institute at UNMC. There was an article by Dr. Catherine Peterson that compared ABA to a modified SOS approach. And then he also shared a list of articles published by Dr. Valerie Volkert that is from Google Scholar that had just a ton of feeding articles.
Cool.
So again, if you want a ton of feeding articles, more so than the few we were able to discuss in the length of our episode, well, you can go to our Facebook page or you can go to the show page for episode 44, and we have all those links from Sean. And thank you very much, Sean, for sharing those. We really appreciated that and the feedback on the episode. But thank you.
Cool.
And then we also got an email. Do you need my phone to read it, or you still have it up, Jackie?
I don't know.
Okay,
Sorry.
let me pull it up.
I have
Sorry.
to read the whole thing.
Yeah, basically,
Okay, that's fine.
we had an email from Joshua, listener Joshua, who asked us about our feeding episode and about where we got our ideas about having, the multiple people be involved in our treatment of feeding, and why we felt it was really necessary to have that level of intensity with our feeding episode.
Yeah, I think his concern was the way that we were presenting it. It might be really hard for some people
Absolutely.
to implement feeding work because we're recommending that it's a whole team of people who are involved in the decision making,
Right.
which is fair.
Yeah, it is hard. Yeah, and we commend you for asking this question because
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to ask this question when they listen to the show. And I think that our hesitation with discussing feeding comes from clinical experience where simple feeding treatments may have gone horribly awry very quickly. And so it's really important if that does happen that you have the proper supports in place. So that's why we really recommend at least everyone knows what's going on. Maybe you are not going to be able to get them on the phone. You're not going to be able to get them in a single room. You're probably not going to, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But at least
Right.
everybody knows what's going on and everybody's on the same page in case something does happen.
Yeah, and I think, behavior analysts we can apply our practice in many different areas, but we need to ensure that we have the proper training
Right.
before we're practicing outside of our area of expertise. And we all feel that feeding really is a specific area in which you should have access to someone who has done it previously, who can serve as a mentor for you, and who can train you to do it properly. And maybe that person is someone that you know personally, or maybe it's someone that you've been able to contact through varying means and can provide that to you remotely. Either way, as long as you have someone that you can work with and run questions by to ensure that you're doing everything that you need to keep that client safe and providing the best practice to them, then that is our recommendation.
Yeah. And we want to make sure, too, that it's not a motor issue. It could be a motor
Yep.
issue, could be so many issues that we wouldn't
Medical.
necessarily be trained to figure out. So that's why we recommend having at least everyone know what's going on. So even if you don't get to tell the pediatrician and the speech and language pathologist and the occupational therapist that this is happening, at least someone is letting them know that you're trying to do this feeding issue. Yeah. So sorry if we were a little daunting, but we just want to make sure that, you understand the brevity of feeding, even if it seems like, oh, I'm just introducing more food into a participant's diet that could still have some long-term effects if you're not careful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just be careful. That's it.
Yeah. And finally, I had a fun email that came to the ABA
You sure
Inside
did.
Track. This is from Todd. It
Hey,
says,
Todd.
"Hello there. I had a friend of mine recommend a podcast to me, and it turned out it had some familiar voices on there." So I don't know where you guys fall on the whole talking to people about, hey, I have a podcast, but it's one of those things that I occasionally will do, but I always feel kind of stupid doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't always mention it, even to,
Right.
folks I work with.
Right.
So Todd is actually a former colleague of mine.
That's funny.
That I never mentioned I had a podcast, and we worked together for many months and had lots of great conversations, but I just never came up.
You didn't.
So
You didn't like drop your own name.
I don't think podcasts are at one of those points where it's like, by the way, I have a podcast. Oh my God, that makes you cooler.
I name drop a bunch.
You do?
Yeah.
You heard my podcast recently?
Yeah,
Everybody?
I do.
Sometimes I will, but I did not to Todd, but it was nice of him to write in. And he continued, I just finished this first transition episode of our 2-part transition
It's
series,
episode 13.
Mm-hmm.
and it was simply excellent. Oh, Todd, thank you so much.
Thanks, Todd.
It's just a huge issue that needs to be discussed, and things need to change. I'm really looking forward to the second part. Great work.
Yeah, that's related to transitioning to adulthood.
Yes, transitioning to
I
adulthood.
believe that's what he means.
Yes, that's
There's also
his
episode
area
8.
of expertise.
18 on transitions. But
No, in this case,
There's no
it's a
part 2
transition
there.
to
Yeah.
adulthood. And then there's a PS. Rob, good thing I did not know, in addition to not knowing I had a podcast, your love of the lake house when we worked together. We would have gotten nothing done. That's all we would have talked about. Very true, Todd. So thank you so much for emailing in. Yes, but if you have not listened to our transitions to adulthood episode, you should go back, check the archives. We
Right.
rebroadcasted it because I think it is an area that only some people seem to have an interest in if they work with adults or work with adolescents. But I think it's one that no matter what age you're in, you need to be aware that it is not the same thing as working with young children. It is a very different
Right.
beast, but everyone is going to have to come to terms with what it means to transition to adulthood at some point
Absolutely.
with disabilities. Well, everybody, but individuals with disabilities most
So,
specifically.
episode 13 is an interview with Dr. Peter Gerhardt on the subject, and then episode 14 follows that up with research on vocational skills training.
I do name drop that I talk to Dr. Peter Gerhardt.
Oh,
so
good.
we talk about, if I'm talking to someone about transitioning, Peter Gerhardt, whom I interviewed.
Okay, good.
When I was talking to Dr. Peter Gerhardt. So I do that one sometimes.
Good.
Okay.
All right. Well, we've got a lot of holiday preparations to make. We're trying to make sure all our episodes come in on time. So we got some work to do. So this is gonna be a little bit of a shorter preview episode. So we'll be back next week with our full-length episode on women in behavior analysis. In the meantime, you can check us out on Facebook, our Twitter, or our website, ABA Inside Track. You can email us at abainsidetrack@gmail.com as well. So thanks, Diana, and thanks, Jackie.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank
Thanks
you.
to everyone
Thanks,
for
Diana.
watching or for listening. And like I said, come on back next week. We'll be talking about women in behavior analysis. But until then, keep responding. Bye.
Bye.